I drove a lorry, went and carried stocks from Tesco, loaded up into his warehouse. That's my day. And then in the evening, I would try to meet some of my insurance clients to keep it sustainable. It was really, really tough. There were days that as I drive, I just cry and I ask myself,
Welcome to the Game of Impossible podcast. My name is Leon and this is my dad, Idris Jala. We are a father and son podcast where we discuss all things transformation through the lens of business, leadership, sport, and faith. Today, I'm really excited to have someone that I've been following for quite a while now on the online space. We have none other than Peter Yong, MrMoneyTV. Peter, thanks so much for being on the show today.
thank you very much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. I've been watching you guys for quite some time as well. So it feels surreal to be sitting on this side of the table suddenly.
It's good. Yeah, well, it's great to have you on, Peter. And all this while, we've been interviewing a lot of people who have maybe played more traditional roles in terms of leadership in a corporate setting. But, today we really wanted to get inside the mind of an entrepreneur, someone who's been a little bit more, first of all, in the content game, but then ultimately also in the startup game.
Yeah.
And to see, maybe out of this, for if there are listeners, younger listeners watching this and thinking that they have dreams that they want to pursue, how can they maybe learn a little bit from this conversation to see how they can spur on maybe some of those things that they've been dreaming of, but maybe are too afraid to start. So, on that note, Peter, maybe before we talk about what you're doing currently, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your story?
So, I think being an entrepreneur was never the thing that I ever thought I'll ever be. Yeah, since young, I grew up in a relatively poor family. So we are considered urban poor. My dad did business but failed. We actually, in fact, had to move down all the way to Kajang to run away from debtors. So when I grew up, my parents always tell us that business is very dangerous. You can lose everything. And number two is when you have no money, people run away from you. And relationship will be more important than anything else. So as I grew up, I had this concept that money is somewhat the root of all evil. Yeah. And so as I grew older, when I went to university, I actually did not want to go. Fun fact is that I actually fought with my mom. I wanted to be a pastor. So I wanted to go into theology school. My mom was like, no way, I'm going to send you to a theology school. You better finish your university first.
Wow.
Yeah. And my sister is a missionary. Yeah. And when I went to uni, I took on a course that's called Human Development and Management.
Where was this?
In UPM.
UPM.
Yes. And how I took on that course was because I told myself I'm not going to do any business subjects. And I saw it says Human Development and Management. And I thought, maybe that's HR?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, since there's no psychology in the list, let's do that. And the last thing I knew, it was actually business management and sociology. So suddenly I have a double major. And I was like, oh my God, this is not the course that I want to be in, right? But because you go to local university, my mom was like, other than local, there's nowhere else that you can go. So I just went and did. And surprisingly, I did quite well in my business subjects. The first time I picked up a business book, I came to learn that business was not all about money. The origination and a big part of it is about people management. It's about being efficient. And I kind of enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the combination of psychology as well. Yeah, because a big part of sociology is psychology. So social science. And then I started thinking like, did I really want to be a pastor because I really enjoyed it? Or because I don't think I like other things and I wasn't willing to explore? So after that, some of the reality set in. For example, you got a girlfriend, you need to start thinking that, hey, looks like getting married needs money, right? Yeah. So I started pursuing a career, and within a short period of time, I came out and I started selling insurance and unit trust. I wanted to start my own business, but during that time, I thought to myself also that it's just a little bit too much of money to start a traditional business. And during those days, internet was pretty new still. Yeah, you either start a cafe or something. And with that in mind, I did sales for the next 10 years. Yeah. And then eventually, when the time was right, I left the industry and I started MrMoneyTV. And today we are a media company. So yeah, the origination is Mr. Money actually didn't like money in the beginning. Only grew to learn to like more about money and make money from there.
Tell us about that shift then, from going into something stable. And obviously now I think the landscape is a bit different. People generally see going into kind of media as a lucrative business, but I think probably a couple of years back, maybe that wasn't so much the case.
Yes.
So what were some of those conversations like, with your family as well, shifting from something stable to then going into starting Mr. Money, and not having that kind of stable income, and also going into a space where maybe it wouldn't work out. Yeah. What was that like for you?
I think it was a combination of evaluating what makes me happy, and number two is what are opportunities in the market. So definitely during that time I was doing quite well, but it came to a point that I'm not very happy with what I do, because being a salesperson, I enjoy the part of educating people about finance, seeing people's eyes light up and say, hey, actually I need to do more with my money. But I didn't like the fact that I need to keep selling them something. Yeah. So that did not make me happy. And subsequently, I thought to myself, maybe I can use this skill to do something. So originally, the idea was I wanted to start a fintech company where I can help people to gain more access into better financial products in a more better way. But I knew that I didn't know how to do coding. But what I had during that time was a phone, right? It's getting very common, and we're scrolling Facebook all the time on our phones. And I started seeing people posting up video on Facebook. And people started watching YouTube because you can post up the link and then it connects to YouTube. And I thought to myself that watching someone talking about something online, isn't it almost the same as me sitting down and having a conversation? The only difference is that we have no interaction. But if you can carry it well, it's almost as good, right? Almost, right? And that became something that created an idea in my mind that if businesses were to move online, then wouldn't every single video become a very important marketing team that you have? A very important salesperson that you can replicate endlessly.
Yeah.
And because I was in the sales industry, we all know hiring salespeople is the best thing, but it's also the worst thing because they control the business. They can walk away a client. And the issue is that very often it is not scalable, right? So I thought that was a very interesting proposition in the market. And then I started paying more attention to the whole marketing direction of every single company and in overseas. Then I noticed in Hong Kong and Japan, they would even use celebrity for their banking advertisements and so on. And then people started mentioning to me, hey, actually I watched some creators in US on YouTube who talks about money. And I thought it was very interesting. And I started watching some of them and I noticed that they are starting to gain following. That time, someone like Graham Stephan only had about 200,000 followers.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself hey, you're talking about money and you've got 200,000 followers. I can talk about money all the time. That's my job, right? And since I do not know how to build a fintech, I can't code. My baby is coming on the way, right? You're gonna make things work, right? You can't be saying that, hey, wife, baby is coming. You know what? Let's not eat for 1 year. I'm gonna go learn coding, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm realistic enough to know that in order to build something, you need to build upon a skill set that you already have.
Yeah.
Yes, I can take the greater leap, but unfortunately, circumstances doesn't look like it's permissible. It's not a very responsible thing to do. So I thought the worst that can happen right now is if I get this trend correct, chances are in the next 5 years, financial institution will start using digital marketing to, we don't even call digital marketing that time. They'll be using YouTube and all these online videos as part of their marketing campaign. And I think I can have an opportunity there to build something very unique for Malaysia. And if I can do well there, then I can accumulate enough money and figure out how do I move on to the fintech game later. So I told my wife that. She has always said this one thing to me: as long as you're happy, and as long as you put food on the table. So I told her this one thing. I said, could you go back out to work? Right? Because that time she wasn't working. Things were okay, quite comfortable. So I told her well, why not give me some time? There were a lot of tears, definitely not like right now. I said, could you just go back and work and let me take these big risks? If all things go well, I promise you, I'll make sure things are going to be fine. I mean, it's just, you went through that.
You had to work it together.
Yeah, there's no choice but to make it happen.
But it didn't occur to you at that time that you could fail.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
You just try not to think about that.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself that there's no point of looking at things you cannot control. Just focus on what you can control. Showing up every day at work, making sure your videos go out, making sure every single video someone writes a comment there and people are engaged. Yeah. So you just do your thing, right?
When was the first time you had made some money out from the Mr. Money? Did it really come out? Wow.
So I posted this video one day after my son was born.
Yeah.
In fact, I was editing the video when my son was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we sent her to UM, the government side. And then I was editing the video downstairs, went up, stopped it. Next morning, posted it up. There was no money at the time.
Yeah, sure.
Then until about October, what happened was that a company approached me. I think it was Renault.
Renault.
Yeah.
Renault. Yeah. And Renault, the manager watches our show and he said, hey, would you like to make a series of video about our rental program, right?
Right.
I was like, sure. So that moment, I decided that now is the time to think about price, right? Yeah, now is really the time to think about price. And you thought to yourself like, what should I price it? 400?
Yeah.
And I told my partner, I said, you know what? Let's not price ourselves too low.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think by my estimation right now, we are the only company who's doing this.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about USP, I think it's worth more. I think we can go for the tier 1 level of normal social media because we're unique enough and it's hard to replicate our content. I say, why not? Let's just go for 7888.
Yeah.
For what reason? Chinese lah. The 888 sounds good lah, right? So I say 7888. So I told the person.
Immediately.
Then we're so scared like if we just do 3 videos, the person will say no.
Yeah.
So I say 10 videos lah. Yeah. So okay lah. Let's see whether they buy. And they buy. Yeah, so that was my first. And the next was...
Yeah, but I suppose you would have said, well, I should have put a higher price lah.
We did think about that. Yeah, but the fact that they buy immediately told me that.
Yeah, they valued it a lot more than you put the price
right.
tag. That's for sure.
Yeah, so then I figured that actually the financial market in itself, it's a very unique market. Yeah, and later, after as I grow more mature in the industry, I came to learn that yes, the CPM for financial crowd, for any financial topic, is the highest among all industries. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. What drew me to your content personally was, I found you because in 2020, when the world went into lockdown, I think a lot of the world started to just think and realize, you know what, we need to be a little bit more financially literate. So I was one of those people, and I started watching, Graham Stephan, and then from there, naturally, the algorithm led me to Mr. Money. And what I loved about your channel was the fact that you could take all of these concepts, which at that time meant nothing to me, but that you could make it so simple for someone like me to be able to understand and engage with. What was it that maybe drew you to picking that sweet spot and that positioning?
I think again, it's a combination of 2 things, right? Firstly is I started my financial knowledge more in depth being an insurance agent and unit trust agent. So in order to sell, you need to tell a good story. Yeah, that's the basic of it all. But the other part of it was because my understanding of money. So I don't think money is the most important thing. But I think money is a very important thing in that sense, where it is what gives you the resources to have options in life. Without options, you're not going to be happy, right? So everyone needs to have a certain level of that. So I think here's where I always don't try to put money as the subject matter, but how we can use money as the main topic. Therefore, from there, when I derive the way I explain about money, I don't put the technical knowledge as number 1. I will put how we can relate to it as the number 1 story that we need to tell. Because the truth is, it's just like guitar, right? I can give you a guitar. If it is the best jazz guitar, but you're actually a metallic player, it will mean nothing. Yeah. And here's where I think when we want to tell a story about money, the key thing is not about the standard deviation, the alpha, the beta, but the question is that how does it relate back to us as a human being in my level, with my goals in mind? How can I use it? And so that was a very unique approach, I suppose, of me trying to present money in my own way to people.
What do you think Malaysians have wrong about money?
Two things. I think Malaysians generally are like me. Firstly, we think that money is unapproachable. It is reserved for the rich. But actually, no. Money is actually everywhere. It sounds very cliche to talk about abundant mindset. But, coming from a family that's not very rich, when you're young, you look at people going overseas, you look at people starting a business. The first thing that comes to your mind is always their family is rich. They have certain privilege, they're accessible. I used to even think that scholarship, you can only get it via connections. So I've never applied for a single scholarship in my life. Because whenever I told my mom and dad, someone got a scholarship, they'll say, oh yeah, they know that Dato.
Right.
Yeah. So I would never go and apply for a scholarship. Do you know when I found that it's not? When I was 20 over years old, I spoke to a friend.
Too late.
Yeah. And then I said that, oh yeah, because teacher like you, so the teacher gave you a scholarship. And then you know what the person told me? They said, no, that day, they made an announcement. Who's interested in the scholarship? Please go to the office. You were playing. I was like, So I think many Malaysians take this approach where we always feel victimized. And I think that that's so wrong.
Yeah. They don't take the action.
Yes. Yeah, they're just like me. When we look at money, when we think about the things, we look at all these crazy jargons and we say that, it's not for me. I'm not born in these kind of things. I think that's nonsense, right? And because I come from that mindset, and when I learned about money, my life changed along the way. Yeah.
Let's take a very simple thing. A graduate come out with a salary of 3,000 ringgit a month. What are the three most important advice that you give to that graduate, how to spend that money?
I think the first thing is make sure you spend less than 50% every month, if you can. Especially if you're living in KL today with your family.
Right.
I think you can. The second part of it is actually when it comes to investing and savings. Now, if you can put in 50%, great. Yeah, if you can't, maybe you'll put in about 20%. The question is where you put your savings.
Right.
Here's where I always like to tell people this one thing. After you prepare for yourself an emergency fund at the minimum level 1,000, ideally 6 months, if not 3 months, right? But right after that, I think the first thing that you need to do is learn how to invest. And I would always suggest people do this. Invest in stocks.
Right.
For one very simple reason. Not to make money, to learn how to make decisions. I think that is the most valuable skill set that anyone needs to learn to advance in life. Think about it. All of us invest in stock somewhere or another, right? Remember the first time when we throw in that money? When you want to press that buy button, you sat there for like half an hour. You read the news again and again. You try to read everything you can and ask yourself, are you sure? And it was regardless whether is it 100, 200 or 100,000. It was regardless.
It's still decision.
It's a decision. But if we buy a guitar or we go to a shop and eat 500 ringgit for omakase, you would just pay the day it comes, right? But when it comes to investing, somehow there's just this block, right? I think the biggest part that everyone needs to learn about investing and why you need to learn it as a fresh grad is it is a lot more about emotional management. It is a lot more about making decisions when you're stressed. When you see the market going down, do you take on that panic mode or do you calm yourself down and say, let me read up whatever information, make a learned decision? And that is not something that you can learn over one class. That's not something that you can learn over one time buying. It is a period of 1 year, making that discipline of keep buying or selling, making decision again and again. And so you need to start when you are a fresh grad, when you're learning to buy a stock at 50 ringgit or 100 ringgit. Yes, you're not going to make money because transaction fee will eat into the profit. But what you're building is way more than that 20% or 100 ringgit. What you are actually building is that muscle, that emotional muscle to actually make decision in the face of stress. And guess what? That ability actually translates into work.
True.
When you're faced stress at work, when your boss tells you A, B, C, D, E, you learn to just calm yourself down and make decisions according to information rather than noise. So I would say that as a fresh grad, aside from all the very standardized, live below your means, I would think that this is something that Malaysians don't know enough.
Do you have any practices for regulating your own emotions to prevent yourself from making, irrational decisions?
Oh, yes. I've made irrational decisions that cost me like 20, 30,000, right? Yeah, every time. Yeah. I came to learn one thing. Firstly, is to understand where you're weak at. Yeah. Like if you know you naturally panic, then don't go into a strategy that will make you panic. Like you know that you're a person easily panic, then maybe it's best to avoid too much of in and out tradings, right? Yeah. And even if you want, make sure that it is not your full portfolio, right? Now, secondly, whenever I am in this situation where I feel like I need to make a decision very, very quickly today, I will just stop. I will not look at anything. I'll wait for 48 hours and I'll forget it. Then I tell myself, if 48 hours later, I still want to make that decision, then I think it's a good decision. Now, yes, there are certain window of opportunities where it's only 3 hours. Then I'll have to ask myself this question. Is that worth for me to go for? Like if I'm just going to throw in 30 to 50,000 ringgit, I'm going to make 3,000 ringgit out of this next 3 days. Is it really worth versus losing 3,000 then? Now, if it's not, then let's not rush into it. So I still go back to it and ask myself this question, what is my end goal at the end of the day? I think sometimes we make very rash decisions in between because we forget the long game. Then we tend to make very short-term benefit kind of analysis, and then we make decision based on that. But if actually are making a long-term, when you have the long-term in mind, you will always ask yourself, does this action today really create that ripple effect to help me achieve my goal, or it actually doesn't matter? Because sometimes in the grand scheme of things, if you look at 30 years, you will actually notice that this 3,000 ringgit doesn't really help me. And you know what's worse? Because I'm so addicted to that, I get it right 3 times. The 5th time, I may end up losing 10. Yeah. Which, that's the truth. I've seen a lot of my friends, actually every week in my office. So I take a DCA approach, dollar cost average.
Yes.
Every month I just put it in. In fact, I've some NVIDIA and Tesla and everything all. I bought it during COVID for NVIDIA. I totally forget I had it until ChatGPT and it became so big. And because my thesis was it would double, but it already tripled. So I actually took out some profit. I took out half of it. I tell myself that is my end goal. According to my calculation, I only need 100%. Anything more than this is risk, is bonus. So secure that first. So when you always have that end in mind, I think there's a way easier way to actually control emotion. But if there's any practical, it's just forget about it. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. If there's no time for you, you need to rush into it. Don't do it. End of story. Yeah.
So when you buy a stock in your mind, normally you buy a stock, there's always a fundamental value attached to the stock.
That's right.
As you do the analysis, all the financial analysts will tell you that's a fundamental value. But there's also a speculative value.
Yes.
This is the problem with emotion. Because a lot speculative value is a lot of emotion associated with it. So for you, if you play that game, the A meaning the fundamental value of the stock, B meaning the speculative value attached to the stock, what is the kind of range that you put onto this? 80-20, or is it 90-10, or is it 50-50, the way you play the game?
It's always 80-20 for me.
80-20.
80% on fundamentals, 20% on sentiments.
Yeah.
That's when I will also take profit 20% when it hits a sentiment level. Yeah. And I don't spend it. I just keep it so that when it crashes, I can reinvest it to gain more units. Yeah. So that's always been my strategy. It's not to say that I've never tried otherwise. I have. It's just that I find over a long period, it tends to be a zero-sum game where I stand by the same spot. Because whenever you make profits, after a while, you become more confident. You just need one mistake to kill you.
Sure.
Yeah. So I figured that out, that it is much more about statistic. So I'm a very statistical person in that sense, right? If the approach that you are taking is out of 10 decisions, you need to make 10 good decisions to do well, but you only need one decision to kill everything. That is not a very good risk to reward ratio, right? But if I take an approach where it is always 50-50 or 60-40, then I have a higher chance of doing well. Now, and so why I take this approach also is because my philosophy of life is that I don't think we are very smart. And so we shouldn't build a strategy based on how smart we are.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's my general idea.
So to you, you make very clear exit strategy at the point when you say, I'm buying the stock, this is at this price, I'm going to exit.
Yes.
Do you often find yourself caught with, I said, wow, I will keep it there. It has reached the point, but you now say, now I revise my my exit strategy. Because do you find it happens to you from time to time?
Especially when I'm more actively trading.
Yeah.
But when I'm no more actively trading, I don't have that. So, but when I was every day looking at the market, yes.
That's the emotion, because speculative value, when it starts, the bull run starts to go, then everybody, you feel like you got into the money, but you now say, I don't want to sell it because I feel greedy. Then the very next day, it crashed.
That's right.
It really crashed.
Yeah. So like think about it. I'm in Bitcoin. I'm actually quite an avid Bitcoin investor. Bitcoin now is all-time high, right? But for me, I already have a number in my mind where will I start exiting. And because of that, I'm pretty much very calm whatever price it is now. So until it hit the number, then I'm going to look. If it doesn't hit that number, I'm fine to just don't bother about market. So in fact, how I find out Bitcoin reaches an all-time high these days, it is very little about I find out the next minute. Very often it's when someone else posts it. Or either I go through in my daily routine where every morning I do my own reading, then I get it. I don't check in the middle of the night and suddenly sees it. And like keep paying attention. I think the best way to actually have a very sustainable way of doing things, whether it's in investing, career, and life, it's not to let it consume too much of you every day. Because the more you let it consume you become a slave to that thing, not a master of that thing. And that has always been my approach. So, but to answer that question, yes, there were days, but today it's a lot lesser.
Well, Leon and I, plus our son Max, we got into the stock market during the pandemic. And we were quite clear in our mind the exit strategy. We were buying the glove shares. And our exit strategy was crystal clear. The moment they announced the vaccine, exit. We have made that very clear. The three of us said, once the vaccine is announced to be effective and it has been got approved by WHO, we will exit.
Regardless of
the price. And that was clear. So we started investing at 7 ringgit per shares, and then it kept running. When it reached, indeed, when it reached 29 ringgit per share, that was the time that the vaccine was announced. At that point, we look at one another, let's now sell. But we got spooked. The reason why we got spooked was Top Glove announced dual listing in Hong Kong. So we both look at each other and said, but these are new circumstances. Although we were very clear about the exit strategy, there's new circumstances that were there. It took us 48 hours to think about that new thing and started to drop from 29 to 27. The very next day I said, let's get out from here.
You made a very good move ultimately.
We got out from it. But the point is this, I mean, for listeners out there, you have to be very clear about your exit strategy.
That's right.
There will always be changing circumstances that will cause you to think twice about it. But if you let that moving goalpost dictate the way in which you manage your stocks, then you get into different kinds of difficulties.
Yeah.
And our view is that Leon, me, and Max, we are of the view that the best time to go into the market, the stock market, is during a crisis. Because it's crystal clear who are the winners and the losers. In normal business, it's not so clear who are the winners and losers. You can do all the statistical analysis. It's still very difficult. It's still very, very difficult. But during a crisis, it's crystal clear. I don't know about Leon, whether you still are.
No, I'm the same as well. I think, and then beyond, obviously, those glove plays at the time. Once we had cashed out, then I was still in the heat of things, and so I decided to go into day trading for a little bit. And I think it's exactly what you mentioned. You fall into this allure of thinking, wow, I've had a good run, and then you start to become very confident in your own ability. And I started to get to a point where I started to think, hey, I think I know how to read the market, and that it was working for me for quite a while. But there was a point where everything just kind of crashed and burned. And I learned very quickly from then on, never think that you can actually time the market. And so I suppose that's the beauty of what you mentioned about, you were sharing earlier about dollar cost averaging. There's value in that, because that is a way to help you to not really think so much about the market itself, but to really just get into the discipline of, investing. And I suppose there's value. Some might say the wins are not as big. But actually what's probably more important is that you just get into the habit, you work that muscle.
That's right.
And you do it in a way that doesn't take so much mental load off from you. You're still able to do your work, you're still able to build your business and not be preoccupied by this crazy animal that's completely out of your control.
In fact, I always tell people this one thing, right? When you're talking about investing money and managing money, the first rule is you gotta have money.
Yes.
So where's your money coming from? If you're gonna be spending all your time managing 10,000 ringgit, it's not going to go anywhere. You need to find somewhere where it pays you 10,000 ringgit every month first, right?
Sure.
And so the good thing is that what you need to do is that when you're learning about investing or money, you want to take those exact same lessons and apply it in life, in leadership, or in business, which actually there's a lot of parallels, I would say. Generally, I would say that investing, managing money, the same philosophy applies to life, leadership, and everything else.
You touched on Bitcoin earlier. What's your overall outlook on Bitcoin, but I think just crypto at large and the blockchain?
Yeah. I think there's a huge distinction between crypto and Bitcoin. And this is one explanation, I help people to understand it a little bit better. Try to think about blockchain as a new planet, right? And when we hear the word cryptocurrency, currency means a dollar of a country, a currency of a country. So think of one day in this planet that's empty, suddenly it forms. And what happened is that there is a country that sprouted up, and it's called Bitcoin Nation. And for you to move there and store your wealth there, you got to buy Bitcoin. It's just the same as today. If we were to move to Singapore or Australia or UK, the first thing you got to do is go to the exchange, move your money, because that's the basic, right? Now, this is the very first nation on blockchain planet, right? And subsequently, people say that, actually, there's a lot of resource here, right? There is timber, there's water. Maybe you can do more than just living there, right? Why not let's build another country called Ethereum? That's the beginning of the first, what we call altcoin. And they say, you know what? Instead of just living there, why not we build infrastructures so that people can come and do business? And so they started this whole idea that, hey, I built a bank where you can do a transaction faster. I built a port so you can put things in. I give you electricity so you can build your business. And this business are called decentralized app. We build a governance to control it. Now, in order for you to run this business and live there, what do you need? You need to buy my ETH. But because now, these two difference between these two nations, the first nation, there's nothing there other than living there. They say we are only going to issue 21 million Bitcoins. That's all. After that, you enjoy life, do whatever you like. 21 million, end of story. Okay? If say, because we need to encourage people doing business, the best way is we keep printing money because we need more supply. When there's more people coming in, we need more. You got to feed the beast. That's how it works, right? So let's develop a system where according to the amount you spend, let's try to control the inflation by burning it. So when they say burning, it is as good as Bank Negara saying, let's increase or reduce the interest rate to control the supply of money in the market. So basically, it's very normal, just like any other normal country. Now, people then start making their bets. Do you think this is going to work better or this is going to work better? My theory, in a most layman term, is this. The evaluation of a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is only happening for two kind of reasons. I will only go to this if I think that globally is very havoc. I need a new type of gold. Why gold? Because today we can buy gold, but most of the time you can't be buying 10 kilogram of gold. And I mean, the purpose of buying gold most of the time, let's be honest, is so that if anything goes wrong, you can run away your gold. You can't be carrying a 10 kilogram gold bar and run away, right? And number two, is so easily get robbed. And if someone robs you, they melt it, you can't claim any ownership. And there's all sorts of issues. Even today, why America is the biggest storage of gold is because most of the country export their gold there to exchange for credit notes, right? And that's how the world is being filled by. So if I want to go by that theory, I got to bet on one thing. The global trade system or the global economic system is on a decline and people are looking for a new safe haven. Now, so it's more about storage of value.
Yeah.
Right? Then there's the other version of the story where I buy the idea that blockchain is going to be the new meta world. It's going to be that new thing. Now, the second story, some people buy it and they make a lot of money, but I'm not a big fan of that. The reason being is because I think it took quite a while before internet took off. I think it is quite parallel that I don't need to live there. People still derive quite a lot of utility value in the real world where AI is booming and stuff like that. I think AI will pick up faster than Web3. Yeah. Because ultimately we're still in this world.
Yeah, sure.
So the only key argument that I see it being much more possible is I want to look for alternative store of value that is non-censored by government.
Yeah.
So for me, that theory has been playing out quite well. And I'm not saying that everyone should invest, but I'm saying that every piece of information that we learn today, whether is it Bitcoin, whether is it anything in life, I think we need to do this test. Someone once told me this. The test of an educated man is when you hear an information, you do not reject it, nor do you accept it, but you study it. And at the end of it, if it benefits you and it helps you to make a better quality of life, then you adopt it. So that has been my approach to many investment assets as well, and even business and everything else. So when I talk about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, this is what I see. And I think people ought to explore and understand if they find this to be the case.
Interesting comment. The only compelling reason for me is why I might look at Bitcoin or cryptocurrency as a good alternative is this. If you look at the current currency of the world, there are lots of weaknesses in the system. And the US, for example, every 2 to 3 years, they go and print money. They call it quantitative easing.
Yeah.
But yet, the currency does not go down the tube. And because the world trade is always denominated in US dollar. But fundamentally, it has caused the whole world to reach an over-leveraged situation. So IMF a few years ago, they added the debt of the whole world put together. It's called the global debt. And then added the whole GDP of the whole world. So the debt as a percent, the global debt as a percentage of global GDP is 336%. And so when you pause and look at the grand scheme of things, you have to wonder, this system that we currently have here is actually flawed because there's so much leverage going on around today, and yet the dollar and some of the countries haven't really plummeted.
That's right.
And the exchange rate in Japan, you say negative exchange rate. How do you run a country where negative exchange rates can continue for quite some time in a country like that? So something is flawed and wrong with the system. So in my mind, I think about the world has to come with an alternative. And that's the reason why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is there because it's trying to fill that vacuum. The jury is still out whether this thing is really going to continue on its bull run. And so do you have an exit strategy for yourself? What is your exit strategy?
I have a price target in mind. If I say it here, I don't know whether it constitutes as an investment advice. That's the part that I'm not saying. But I do have a number in my mind.
Yeah.
But will I exit fully? No. I will just take profit to secure a certain amount and to just reinvest when the market crash. So will Bitcoin crash? I will just put it on the record. It will crash later. It's just a matter of time. I think every asset will crash, right? It's always a cycle, right? But it always crash upwards, always a long term. That will be my vision of it. And I think you're right when you talk about the economics and everything all, is that I think here's the sad thing about the global financial system and politics and all, is because it is always taking on a very short-term view of things. I mean, I've listened to Game of Impossibles at least the first 8 episodes at least for like three times. For like 3 times when a company was expanding, right? And to put it in short, it's the same idea there, right? When you're leading a transforming organization, you're going to make decisions fast, and sometimes those decisions may not make people happy. But unfortunately, in the global situation, when your leader of the world at the point is America, and in a democratic system where every 5 years you need to get re-election, you spend your first 1.5 years trying to make people happy. Last 1.5 years to make people happy again to get re-elected. You only work for the next 3 years. Right. Whatever thing that you will need to prescribe has to make sure that it sees a result in 3 years. So they're not interested in long term. So what happened is that the Keynesian theory of economics become the staple. And Keynesian is the whole idea that when an economy is weak, you should never let it suffer. You should always pump more money.
Yeah.
And that became the dominating theory. And the truth is, if you try to speak against that, you're not going to get installed in any place. You're not going to get a professorship. You're not going to get anything. Because there's actually two areas of, two schools of thought in economics, but one side is extremely dominant.
Yeah.
It is as good as if our child today is very tired, we feed them more sweet to keep them awake. It's a matter of time it's going to crash, right? And I mean, fact, once
I've learned that the hard way with my daughter.
and so I think this is how the world economy is, and this is how how our world leaders are managing a country.
Absolutely.
And I don't see it changing. Yeah, I love democracy. But I do see the flaw in democracy.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Just change subject. You are the first person that Leon and I interview on this channel podcast. That is actually a guy that started with a startup. Most of the other Tony Fernandez and Nazir Razak and Azman Mokhtar, big companies. So for you, when you started, there's a period we were watching your growth. So from being very, very small, you started to grow. And you become bigger now than when you first started. Tell me this growing pains that you have. What are the challenges as you start going through the growing pains in your company?
I remember when this whole idea started, when I told people that I think it's just a matter of time that we'll have more and more financial influencers in the market. We don't even call it financial influencer at that point. We just say YouTuber who talk about money, right? Everyone went a little bit like, oh yeah. The next thing is, just as any startup would, you try to get investors in the early days. I didn't know how it works. I just felt that that's the normal path. So I attended a lot of networking meetings. I pitched to investors, telling them this is what I see of the future. I think the worst that can happen is that we're going to be a cash flow generating good media company. I can tell you nobody cares. Nobody cares. Who are you? I don't think what you say is true. And they poke a lot of holes in my idea, which I agree it was holes.
Okay.
But I always feel comforted that whatever holes that they poke is holes that I know is there. I only get a bit more panic if you tell me something that I don't know.
I see.
Yeah. So I always feel that the key thing about starting it is when you believe in an idea so well, you need to be able to argue the opposition's idea even better than the opposition. If you can't do that, means you're going in blindfolded. But if you can argue their position better than they can argue it, it means you're going in with eyes wide open.
Yeah, sure.
That is when I believe what I always tell people is this: as an entrepreneur, you need to have that obsessive optimism, not naivety, but optimism. Optimism meaning I already know what's not going to work with me. I know what's my tailwind, what's my headwind. I'm still willing to go in because I'm taking my bets. Naivety is I go in not knowing anything. So that was the first part of it. It was tough. It came to a point that after about half a year, 1 year, I actually don't go any networking meetings anymore. I figured that it's better that you just sit there and do your work. Yeah, let your result speak later. True enough, later today, we are quite okay. Yeah. I don't need to explain what's a financial influencer today. I don't need to explain, will bank use such a marketing tool? Will government use such a marketing tool? I don't need to explain any of that. But the next part of the growing pains actually is about family, right? Because in the early days when I came into this business, I was already a little bit in debt. I was already in debt because I tried to start an independent financial planning business first and it didn't work out. So there were debts there. And because my wife was not working, I had to really have this conversation with my wife. I remember at that point, right? My first half a year, 2019, was split between early morning going to do recording. Afternoon, I would go out and drive lorry. Because I have a friend who owns a couple of warehouses and they are trading for FMCGs. So he told me, he said, why don't you just come and learn the business from me? So he gave me a couple of lorries. I would go and buy stocks. I drove a lorry.
Wow.
I went and carry stocks from Tesco and all places that sells cheap. Load it up into his warehouse. That's my day. And then in the evening, I would try to meet some of my insurance clients to keep it sustainable. So I barely go home as well. It was really, really tough. There were days that as I drive, I just cry and I ask myself, is this really the path? Why don't you just go and fully sell insurance, right? I think you make more money. Like, why are you doing this thing?
But you weren't happy doing that before.
I wasn't happy. And then in the end, I met a friend. And this friend of mine, he told me this one thing. He said, I think that you're so scattered right now. If you really believe in the vision, why not just give yourself half a year or 1 year? Just fully build on it. Because even efforts that you don't see coming into fruition actually compounds into something one day.
Sure.
And so I thought what he was saying is very right. So I went home, I told my wife, Dad, cried, pled, talked, and then she was like, yeah, I need to go back and work. And at that time, Samuel was just 1 year old. And moms, right? You really want to spend time with the kid. So I felt bad, right? But eventually she came back on work. But from that day, actually, I barely spent time at home. When COVID hit, I was sleeping in the office. For half a year, me and my business partner, we literally have a sleeping bag. My routine is I sleep there. I wake up in the morning. I go back for a brunch with my wife, buy groceries, go back to the office. That was the life for close to a year. It was a life of close to a year. My kid will come and visit me when like birthday and stuff like that. It sounds like so sad here, right? But now I think back, actually, quite sad. They time to time then come and visit me. Just bring them over and my kid would just enjoy with all the mics and everything. Yeah, but that was in the early days. It was really just like that. And when you got to pay yourself, you know what we pay ourselves? We pay ourselves 500 ringgit. And we had our first staff. We told ourselves this, we are a financial literacy company. You should be paying your staff well. So during COVID, our first staff came in with 2,700 ringgit as their fresh grad pay. Later, we had a bit more. We hired our next staff. We pay ourselves 800 ringgit. Then we had a bit more. We have about 5 staff. When we can afford a manager where we pay 6,000 ringgit, we pay ourselves 2,000 ringgit. Yeah. Only last year, I started normalizing my pay a bit more. Yeah, because my kids are a lot older now. We need to start paying for tuition and everything. I told my partner, I said, no, I think the burden of caring for a family is going to affect my work already. So let's normalize back our pay. But is it that we can't afford? But I think the thing is that when you start up as an entrepreneur from startup level, you tend to have 2 things that you carry with you that later you also need to change. But it's also a very important thing that makes you very successful as well to a certain extent, which is that extreme paranoia. because you've tasted bitterness. You don't ever want to go back. You have this paranoia that anything alerts you. I think at first I thought it was abnormal. For a point, I thought I need to see therapists also because like something's off with you, right? But as I read through more and more biographies like Steve Jobs, like Bill Gates, I noticed that Bill Gates got listed in one of the biggest companies in the world. One day when he saw the internet came up, he wrote a memo like as if the company is going to collapse and tell everyone to focus on that one thing, right? And he talked until like tomorrow the company won't exist. And I realized that I think generally anyone who start from there, I think it's quite common lah. So I don't think I need to see a therapist yet lah. So we carry this kind of thing. And number two is we tend to be very, I think, Dato, you were talking about working with Tan Sri Jeffrey, right? I'm not sure it displayed part of it where there is still this, when it talks about rewarding yourself, the perception is very weird one. You may be able to buy, you may be able to pay someone a lot of salary or buying a building just like that. But when like certain little things, you'll stinge on it. Because it just comes habitually that last time is like that. So I think that's how it is for a startup entrepreneur.
Do you think that is the necessary cost? Let's say if there are people who are listening to this and they've got dreams, aspirations of wanting to start their own business, and maybe they're also they've got a young family too. In hindsight, do you think that it is a necessary cost for leading in that capacity? Or are there things that maybe as you reflect back, maybe I could have made a bit more time, maybe I could have been smarter with some of my time management? What are your thoughts on this?
I would love to say there's a balance. Unfortunately, I've not seen evidence of such balance exist and did well. Maybe there is. Like I heard podcasters had that. They did part-time for 5-6 years. But I would say I've not seen enough evidence for me to say that this will be the way. So still, I would say for most people, unless you have a certain advantage in terms of maybe your family is a little bit more well off, so some things can be disposed of. If you're going to start with zero with no funding, I think it's a very high chance. I've seen a lot of people fail because they're not willing to do it. I'll give you a good field example. When I started in Commonwealth. Commonwealth was an open office space, right, and everything. They were all these budding entrepreneurs, right? I was just one of them. Yeah, I'm one of them. And very often when I chat with them, I notice there's this one mentality that is very, very different. They have this feeling that once I start this business, I am a business owner. As a manager, who am I to sweep the floor?
Right.
That's not my job.
Right.
Oh, this kind of marketing stuff? No, that's not what I want. That's too low. And always, it just surprised me because maybe I grew up in a more traditional side, right? We always hear like Chinese tauke sweeping floor. So my idea is that when you run a business,
do everything.
You do everything. Toilet paper you buy. Do you know I washed my toilet in the early days?
Sure.
Yeah. When we first had the office, I'm the one who washed the toilet to keep it clean, And I think a lot of people, when they start their business, they don't see that. They don't understand the concept that you eat last as the leader, not eat first.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think all these are part and parcel of eventually developing that obsession to succeed, right? And because if you are a startup entrepreneur with no funding background or anything like that, the truth is the only way that can keep you alive is that hunger and obsession to succeed.
So, we've talked about it now in terms of you managing yourself and leading yourself to, have that audacious goal, have that audacious vision and be, I think persistent in wanting to pursue that. How do you then, as your team has grown, how do you also make sure that vision, that same vision is carried by your team? Because the reality is, like you mentioned earlier, for you to lead is also to accept that you're going to be standing in a rather lonely place because in the early stages, only you are going to be able, maybe you and your business partners will be able to see the path ahead. And obviously there's a point at which the rest of the team probably doesn't see it at all. How do you manage them in a way to be able to follow course even if they don't exactly see the end in sight?
I think this part was a very long time question that I've been asking. I think at least half of it theoretically was answered by your podcast. Yeah, it helped me see things a lot clearer because I did read a lot of leadership books, but you and your dad actually put it out in a lot of very practical operational terms as well. And one more thing is that the loneliness part. Why am I saying it first? Because I think these are the first few things that you need to address before you even talk about translating to your people.
Right.
So I keep telling my wife this one thing after coming to your house the other day, that you mentioned that you don't go to any of your staff's wedding dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first day I heard it, it sounded like, oh, okay, it's very disciplined. But later when I go home, I process, it's damn lonely. It means that you don't have a personal relationship with most of your staff. You have selected people that you develop a personal relationship with. And today, as my business grew from 5 people all the way to 12, 20, I'm starting to see that. It's sad. But I think the first thing as a leader you're going to acknowledge is that if you don't think you can acknowledge the fact that you're going to be alone and you can accept that, then don't be.
Yeah.
Because again, there's no evidence in this world that shows you that the bigger up you go, the bigger the party. It is always a pyramid. So first thing is acknowledge. Why is that acknowledgement very important is when you apply it. I think I mentioned to you guys over lunch. The first thing I tried was adjusting myself by being nicer. Instead of casting the vision in such a way where, because in the early days, you're very obsessed about it. You're very straightforward. Either it's here or there. Let's go. If you don't go, you're not with me. The door is there. And 5 people is fine.
Yeah.
When you hit 12, when you start to middle managers, they will start to question whether is this the right way, especially if you have managers coming from corporate setting, because no one talks like that, right? No, you're not supposed to tell people the door is there, right? You are not supposed to pressure people. I mean, not intentionally, but like you're not supposed to be like, oh, I need to get it done. I need to get it done now, right? Yeah, and for example, some of the common things will be, oh, if you want me to do, or you want me to come out with a report, where's my analyst to crunch the data?
Right.
I'm like, huh? You need analyst one?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I used to come out with the data myself, crunch it myself, prepare a report myself, present it myself. What? Not 3 people do one thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and I realized all this became part and parcel of it, where you try to change yourself to adapt. But eventually I came to learn that forget it. There are certain things you need to adapt. There are certain things you don't. And why this part is crucial is because how to keep your whole team going is actually no more about what you say. When it's 5 people, I can tell them the story that I believe every Malaysian deserves to be financially literate and this can change the world. This vision sells when you're 5. When you're 12 to 20, what you say right now will only consist of 20% of their feelings and what can be done. Remaining is about culture and structure and systems. And if you build your system not based on such vision and aggressiveness towards that vision, you allow so much of distraction in your system, then you're not going to get there. Because it's no more about me saying within the next 5 years, we want to make sure 50% of the B40 understand how to save 100,000 or 50,000 ringgit. When you don't set the kind of system to go towards there where it requires you to come out with X amount of video with X amount of views, or like, I don't care whether you work through the night or not, as long as you get me this result kind of thing. But instead you take that lovey-dovey, let's think things, oh, you don't feel good, then you're not going to get there. Because once you pass that 5 to 10 people, vision is about how you create a structure that drives a culture. Yeah. And that has been, I would say, the hardest learning curve for myself. And I understood at the point why there are so many people, Chinese businessmen especially, who actually runs one shop and they do quite well. And when they open the next shop, they stop.
Yeah.
Because that moment they realize one thing. My margins are so much more better when I'm running that one shop. No one tells me what to do. But once you have 2 shops, 3 shops, when you're middle manager, suddenly your business start owning you when you do not know where to draw the line. Suddenly you realize that your margin doesn't look that good, but your revenue looks so good. Why? Because you can't just take out the money. Now suddenly you need to reward everyone. And you need to keep everyone happy. Suddenly everyone's happiness is a thing. And so I understood why Chinese businessman or even like any small business owner, they just don't want to expand.
Because scaling up is a challenge in itself.
That's right.
It's a very, very big
That's why
challenge.
our podcast is just the two of us.
You see, for me, mine is the reverse. I was in the corporate world, large corporation, very big companies. Then when I finished my tenure and then doing all that, then I decided to go and do a startup. And people thought I was crazy. Why, Idris, you want to go and do a startup from ground zero? And so in 2017, we started PEMANDU Associates. Really like you. It was a startup. I couldn't rely on systems that were providing. We have to do everything ourselves. We had enough money to pay our salary for 2.5 months. That was it. If we didn't have any clients, we would have gone bankrupt as a firm in the startup. But I mean, it was very unnerving to do it. So I think a lot of people like you, Peter, when you want to start a new startup, I think you have to develop a very high pain threshold.
Oh, yeah.
Very high pain threshold. And if you don't have a very high pain threshold, you are really in trouble.
Well, that's why you got a lot of tattoos. You obviously have a high pain
Out of
threshold.
the practice, right?
Yeah, and a fresh one as well.
Yeah, that's very important. I like the comment that you made before. When the chips are really down, you will be leading from the front to take more of the pain rather than everybody else. In our case, when we were nearly bankrupt during the pandemic, I took the pain by saying to everybody, I will go on a zero pay, 100% pay cut the whole pandemic.
Yeah.
And then my partners, we all had 90% pay cut. So because we took the turn, we were then able to tell everybody it's okay, it should be okay for some of you to progressively have a reduced income. Middle managers had 50% pay cut. The junior staff had 10% pay cut. But I was 100%. But I think it came from exactly the same attitude that you took, where you didn't give yourself a very high salary, but you paid other people more. But that was the only way you could justify running the business. So in that sense, you pick for yourself very high pain threshold.
Yeah.
Sleeping in the office for almost a whole year. It's really depressing.
That's a lot. You didn't do that.
I didn't need to do that.
That's next level. But I'm curious. What for you have been often the signals for scaling then?
Signal for scaling.
When do you know when it's time to start maybe bringing a few extra people into the team?
I think definitely financial plays a role. You need to know that you have enough income to support. Until now, it's a bit of an art and science. I'm trying to make it more science these days. But I would say that when you begin the time, do you actually have that idea of making it big first? Yeah. I think it's okay to actually start with the idea that I just want a 5-man team. And I'm happy with a 5-man team. I think it's fine. Unfortunately, what I wanted is way bigger. Not so much about a man team, but the kind of work that I want to be done, the goals that I want, definitely requires way more. Number 2 is, I think you will come to a point where you realize that you want to build a level of management team, scaling as in having the people who do your work. Because ultimately, when you start a business, you don't want to be spending the rest of your life being the cashier, right? You want to be able to go home and then you hire a cashier and run the business. And therefore, it requires you to make sure you have a store manager or something like that. So that is the part where you realize that when the operations consume so much of you that you have no time for other things, then it's best that you hire. Yeah, that's when the business should turn into a passive income, right? Now, because I always tell myself that your time is worth way more than sitting down there and editing a video.
Definitely.
Yeah, I always tell my staff this thing. You know, actually every Thursday morning I play golf. In fact, I just play golf very near you guys, right? Yeah. So every Thursday morning I play golf. Nowadays I go back and spend more time with my kids as well. And I always tell my team this one thing, right? You want to come to a point to understand what is the value that you are carrying. And I think that as a business owner, to a certain extent, if you have big dreams, the most valuable thing that you have is your ability to think. And so anything that buys you the time to think becomes a valuable investment. And that's when it's the scaling part. Because I can come back after a golfing session, I make a decision, and it can grow the company, right? I mean, it comes together a plan of execution. You're not just talking, right?
Yeah.
But that is the thing, number one, right? I think number two, when it comes to scaling also, is actually opportunity. Because I also acknowledge the fact that when it comes to businesses, but this should be the second priority, it shouldn't be the first priority. Why is it so? It's because there will be times where you come to a point where you realize that you cannot scale because the demand is just so much. If you don't scale, you may end up lose your priority position in the market. So it's best that you scale, right? So, but I would always say that number one should be the main priority of decision is whether do you want it or not, and do you see something bigger achieve. Number two is the second area that you need to consider. If these two falls in line, then is the question about science right now, where when you make a calculation of cash flow, do you think you can?
Yeah.
No. And I always say that this is at least one formula that I hear a lot of media people telling me. Putting aside retention, putting aside the yearly repeating revenue kind of contracts, retainer businesses, every single headcount you hire, so the retainer is to support your back end. Every single upfront people you hire for accounts, for strategy, and the rest of the stuff should at least bring in 10 times of their salary. At least. And the minimal is 1 million. So anything 1 million and onwards.
Yep.
So if you're 30,000, also 1 million. A year income, 50,000, also 1 million. But if you're looking at 200,000 a year income, then it's going to be 2 million. Yeah. So that is generally the rule of thumb that I notice when I speak to almost every media CEO tells me about the same thing.
What's your current game of impossible?
I think currently my game of impossible is to develop a product.
Right.
Because from a media company now switching to a product company is going to be a whole different game.
Sure.
So I started this company with the theory that I can bring financial literacy to everyone's pocket.
Right.
Yeah. And helping every Malaysian access to financial products easily. Now, for this, I need to give all of you guys a very, very quick background on financial industry in Malaysia. Yeah. If we talk about firstly insurance-wise, our insurance commission is pretty high. It's about 180%. Yeah. And if you look at Singapore, it's about 70, 80%. Half of that. Why? Because government took the intervention to actually push it further down and stuff like that. Now, definitely a lot of noise from the agents market. Is it good? Is it bad? That's another story for another day. There is a place for them. But however, today, if you want to buy any form of financial product, you generally need to go to a human intermediary. Yeah. Unless it's a very, very simple product. So simple that sometimes it's not very useful. Investment side is better, but when it comes to insurance side, it's different. Now, why is it so? Is because that's just how the market is. But I think that there is a way to bridge that. For example, insurance is the most basic one. There's so many B40 in Malaysia who doesn't have an insurance. There's so many M40 who are not affordable, can't have a sufficient amount of insurance. For the reason of all sorts of different things, from insurance company needing to make their profit, agents need to make their money, hospitals need to make their money, everything all adds together. But I think there is a way to actually solve this. Yeah. It's by cutting through all that, and if we can allow people to buy a product that is as good as the one that intermediaries are selling, but by reducing the profitability of each of the product in terms of commission paid, yeah, but increasing the volume. That way, yes, it will be a suffering for some of the people, but for the greater public, it's good. Think about Asia, right? It used to be so difficult to travel. When Asia reduced the price, everyone all makes so much noise. Hey, why you cut down our margin? You make us difficult. But today, it's so accessible. People from Myanmar can come here easily. For us, we can go there easily. It is for the greater good of public. Now, and number two, do you know that in Malaysia, there's only about 1,500 licensed financial planner?
Really?
Yes.
Very small.
1,500?
Yes. We have 30 million population. We have 75,000 doctors. We have more Malaysians who are financially sick. and they don't get enough financial advice. Why? Because if I only have 1,500, I will only serve the top 1%.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm talking about 5,000 a year of fees.
So you're developing a platform to deal with this, lah.
Yes.
How far are you down the track?
So we are coming out with our first MVP.
Yeah.
It should be out within the next 2 weeks already.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then we are slowly building more features.
What will it do?
What I want is every fresh grad at the moment they graduate, or every person when they think about money, they will just go to this product and they will ask questions. It could be that at the moment they go up there, they'll say, hey, I'm a fresh grad, I'm earning 3,000 this month. What can I do now? Do I need a credit card? Do I need insurance? How does it look like? So I'll give you an example. One of the earliest part of it that I'm testing out this feature.
So the first part is about building an awareness and a knowledge.
That's
making them more literate.
That's right.
Then is there a module that helps them now? So now that you're more literate, investing.
Yes.
Will it have the various products? Should I put money in unit trust? Should I put an ASM, ASB? Should I put FD? So the module has that as well?
Later, it will be developed because that part we need more regulation.
Okay.
So currently, we're already in talks with some of the regulatory bodies. And we are in the process of application. So we see
that
this
I think it's a very big one.
Yes. In fact, there was one idea that I was sharing with you the last time we had a coffee, right? What if we can make insurance in this way where it can be paid partially can be paid via account 2 or account 1 or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we can have an insurance coverage. And number 2, what if we can create insurance with tiering? Like, for example, a cheaper insurance that pays for your private wing of government hospital. That way you solve another problem. Government hospital gets revenue. Number 2, what if we can have certain type with certain private hospital? If let's say the person buys this insurance, certain network of private hospital, it's an exclusive sign, right? Then everyone benefit. You get a steady stream of clients coming in. This is a cheaper insurance as well. So it solves the problem, right? Although I think I'm being simple-minded looking at such a high point, but I think there are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of possibilities, but all that it requires for the start is for everyone to know where to look for a financial advice first. Everyone needs to be literate enough to say, yes, I want to get an insurance. Or, yes, I think I need to start setting aside 500 ringgit. Because that's a problem. Malaysia don't have that yet.
Yeah. And you're in a good position to, I think, begin to roll something like this out, having already established a platform that you already have in MrMoneyTV. So, I mean, really excited to see how this will shape up.
Hopefully.
In 2 weeks' time. Huh?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Finally, Peter, to close, you're a man of faith. We attend the same church. And you shared earlier that you wanted to be a pastor as well at an earlier point in your life. I wonder, as you're pursuing this game of the impossible, both for your personal pursuits, but also for your business, obviously with that comes challenges. How does your faith continue to spur you on?
I wouldn't even say that my faith spur me on. I would say that actually that's the whole basis. This is something that I don't really share in my own channel or in most places. In fact, my sister is a missionary. When I wanted to leave the financial industry, I did consider if going into pastoral or being a missionary is the calling. But I came to a position after a while, when I prayed about it, I thought maybe God has called me to be in this industry for a reason. Maybe all the suffering and all the knowledge I've learned, the ability to explain is part of His calling in my life to do something. And I would say that this itself is my calling. And this is the reason why I can pay myself 500 ringgit when I pay other people that money. This is the reason why I can go home less or sacrifice a lot of things. Because I truly believe that that's the purpose of my life, to help the general Malaysians to understand money better so that they can live a better life. And to me, that, aside from praying, aside from preaching, that's the most practical thing that I can do to help the people around me and to bless the people around me. Yeah. So I would say that less about the faith that spurred me on, but more about overall, this is what I believe God has called me. Because I've gone through a period of my life where I actually refused to go back to church. Yeah. And I think God was relentless. Yeah. He made sure He bring me back in very miraculous ways that I find it hard to deny it at all. And so when I question what's next, okay, I'm just gonna do this. Yeah. Because the truth is, if I just take a slightly different approach, I start teaching investment, I can easily charge 20,000 per pax. I can easily make about 50 to 100 million a year. Yeah. And that's what people are making when they're teaching classes. Not for long, but maybe 5 years when you're hot. Then after you go on, but 5 years of 10 million also a lot of money, right? 50 million straight away. There's money that probably I will never see in my bank account for the next 10 years. So that's
wonderful.
Well, what a great way for you to be able to really show the love of God to people through a practical way and really helping to actually make people's lives better. I think that is how we as Christians, people of faith, are called to be able to serve and ultimately to evangelize through practical means.
Yeah.
Peter, it's been a real joy having you on the channel with us. Thank you so much once again for being here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you once again for listening to yet another episode of The Game of the Impossible. We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Peter said he'd been taking notes listening to our episodes, but I'm personally going to be taking a lot of notes listening back to this one. If you enjoyed conversations like this, we put up episodes every Friday at 6 a.m. We also have short form content on both our IG and TikTok at The Game of Impossible. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.